Rendering a very large amount of output to the APL developer version history pane can take considerable time. Sometimes, this is done accidentally by the APL64 programmer, and an interruption in the programming time occurs. While the break key is available to stop the rendering of output to the history pane, it cannot prevent display of a significant amount of output. The APL64 large output threshold option can avoid this accidental interruption in a programming session. This video will explain more about the user-specified option, large output threshold applies. The APL64 developer can select the option Large Output Threshold Applies from the Rendering Large Output to History Threshold menu item to prevent an unintentional display of a large amount of output to the APL64 developer version history pane. The APL64 programmer can specify the large output threshold value. When the threshold is exceeded, the output is assigned to the APL64 quad_XSO system variable instead of being rendered to the history pane. In the APL64 developer version, use the session Rendering Large Output to History menu items to enable the large output threshold and large output threshold value. When the large output threshold applies option is checked, the APL64 developer version will check the size of the output to be rendered to the history pane. If the size of the output exceeds the large output threshold value, the output is not rendered and is instead assigned to the APL64 quad_XSO system variable. The large output threshold is set in units of 1 million bytes. The system default for the large output threshold option is enabled and the threshold is 5 million bytes. When the large output threshold is enabled, a message box is presented if the output to be rendered to the history pane exceeds the large output threshold. In this example, the large output threshold was configured to 5 million bytes by the APL64 programmer. The large output value, prior to interpreter formatting, has been assigned to the APL64 quad_XSO system variable when the large output message box is presented. The APL64 programmer can access the large output from the read-only quad_XSO system variable. The values, shape and rank of quad_XSO is the same as the interpreter-provided output from the APL64 executable statement which was executed. The APL64 programmer can access the large output, prior to formatting by the interpreter, from the read-only quad_XSO system variable. The value of the quad_XSO system variable is the same as the source of the output, including the data, shape and rank. The value of the quad_XSO system variable is refreshed only when the user-selected threshold is exceeded. Thank you for viewing this video. If you have questions or comments, please contact support@apl2000.com.